The arrival. Ambassador Raxar glanced nervously at the shimmering expanse of Olympus Station, its metallic surface reflecting the distant stars. As he prepared to meet his human counterparts, he could not shake the feeling that this encounter would change everything for his people. The Xandarian Empire was on the brink of collapse, facing famine due to dwindling resources. If these negotiations failed, trillions would suffer, and he bore that weight on his 3 beating hearts. The stories he had heard about humans filled him with dread. They were known throughout the galaxy for their unpredictable nature and their strange ability to fall unconscious at will, a phenomenon Raxar found utterly terrifying. How could any species afford to surrender their consciousness so easily? It was as if they were willingly stepping into a void, leaving themselves vulnerable to whatever dangers lurked in the dark. As the airlock hissed open, revealing a tall figure with a confident smile, Raxar felt his tentacles twitch involuntarily. Ambassador James Thompson stood before him, muscular and exuding an aura of calm that unsettled Raxar even more. "Welcome to Olympus Station, Ambassador Raxar. I hope your trip was pleasant," Thompson said cheerfully, extending a hand in greeting. Raxar hesitated, but eventually extended one of his tentacles in return. "It was adequate," he replied cautiously, trying to mask his unease. "I look forward to our discussions." "Excellent. Let me show you to your quarters so you can rest up before negotiations begin tomorrow," Thompson said, leading him through the bustling corridors filled with humans and Xandarians alike. As they walked, Raxar observed how humans interacted, laughing, chatting, and even playfully nudging each other. It was a stark contrast to his own people's reserved nature. He couldn't help but wonder how they managed such camaraderie while facing existential threats every day. Once they reached his quarters, Thompson gestured for him to enter. "Make yourself comfortable. We'll begin early tomorrow." With that, he turned on his heel and left. Raxar sat on a sleek chair designed for humanoid comfort, but found it ill-suited for his physiology. He gazed out at the stars through a large viewport, feeling both awe and fear at the vastness of space. What if this meeting went horribly wrong? What if they couldn't reach an agreement? His thoughts spiraled into darker territories as he recalled tales of human wrath, stories that echoed in his mind like dying screams. The next day dawned bright and early. Raxar prepared himself mentally for what lay ahead. He donned his ceremonial robes, adorned with intricate patterns symbolizing peace and prosperity, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within him. As he entered the conference room, he was greeted by a mix of familiar faces from both sides. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. However, it quickly shifted when several human delegates began nodding off mid-discussion. Their eyelids fluttered like delicate wings before succumbing to gravity. One delegate's chin sank onto his chest with an audible snore that echoed through the room. Raxar's eyes widened in disbelief. "Ambassador Thompson," he exclaimed, turning toward his counterpart, who appeared engrossed in paperwork despite the chaos unfolding around him. Thompson looked up with mild surprise before chuckling softly. "Ah, I should have warned you about this," he said casually. "Humans require regular periods of sleep to function at peak efficiency." Raxar felt a surge of frustration mixed with confusion. But how can they possibly contribute if they're unconscious? His tentacles twitched in agitation as he struggled to comprehend this bizarre custom. "They process information on a subconscious level," Thompson explained calmly. "When they wake up, they'll be fully engaged." Raxar shook his head incredulously, but felt fatigue creeping into his own limbs as well. Perhaps a break wouldn't be such a bad idea after all. He nodded stiffly in agreement. As he sipped bitter Xandarian tea in the cafeteria later, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was outmatched in this strange game of diplomacy. How could he negotiate effectively with beings who willingly surrendered their consciousness? It felt like an insurmountable challenge, one that threatened not only his career but also the very survival of his species. He took a deep breath, reminding himself why he was here. The fate of trillions rested on these negotiations. He had no choice but to find common ground with these peculiar creatures, even if it meant confronting his deepest fears about their sleeping habits. Just then, alarms blared throughout Olympus Station, jolting him from his thoughts. Panic surged through him as he rushed back toward the conference room, where chaos erupted around him. Armed Xandarians had taken control. His heart raced as he recognized Krax among them, a notorious extremist who had long opposed any cooperation with humans. As Krax brandished a plasma rifle toward Thompson's head, Raxar's resolve hardened. He would find a way through this turmoil or die trying. In that moment of crisis, surrounded by fear and uncertainty, Raxar realized that perhaps understanding these strange sleeping beings was not just essential. It might be their only hope for survival against those who sought to tear them apart. Strange customs. As the alarm bells echoed through Olympus Station, Ambassador Raxar's heart raced with a mixture of fear and determination. The sight of Krax, the notorious extremist, holding Ambassador Thompson at gunpoint was a nightmare come to life. Yet, amidst the chaos, another thought nagged at him, the human sleeping habits that had both puzzled and terrified him. The unsettling reality. Raxar had heard whispers about humans and their peculiar need for sleep. It was a concept that defied logic in his mind. How could a species afford to surrender their consciousness so willingly? The Xandarians were a race built on vigilance and endurance, traits that had allowed them to survive in a galaxy filled with dangers. To Raxar, sleep was synonymous with vulnerability, and here were humans, seemingly unbothered by the perilous situation unfolding around them. As he watched Thompson's eyelids droop dangerously low, Raxar felt an odd mix of admiration and disbelief. The human ambassador appeared calm, even as the plasma rifle pressed against his temple threatened his very existence. How could he be so relaxed? Did he not understand the gravity of the situation? Seeking understanding. After the initial shock subsided, Raxar's mind began to race. Perhaps there was more to this human custom than he initially thought. Could it be that their ability to sleep under duress was a form of resilience, a way to cope with stress that allowed them to approach problems with a fresh perspective? Determined to find out, Raxar focused on Thompson's breathing. Steady and rhythmic. It struck him that perhaps this ability to rest in the face of danger was not merely foolishness, but a strategic advantage. While Xandarians thrived on alertness, humans seemed to draw strength from their moments of unconsciousness. The breakthrough. With his heart pounding in his chest, Raxar quickly formulated a plan. If he could buy time while Thompson slept, perhaps he could find a way to negotiate with Krax without further endangering the human delegates. He turned back to the console, typing furiously as he crafted a message intended for Krax. Listen closely, Raxar began, speaking into the comms channel that connected him directly to Krax. We are on the brink of an unprecedented agreement between our two species. I urge you to reconsider your actions. Krax's laughter crackled through the line like broken glass. You think I care about your precious agreements? This is about power, Raxar. Your people have been weak for too long. Raxar took a deep breath, steadying himself as he prepared for what might be his last chance at saving Thompson and the other human delegates. You are mistaken if you believe strength lies solely in aggression. Sometimes it is those who appear vulnerable who hold the greatest power. A moment of calm. As Krax continued to rant about human weakness and Xandarian pride, Raxar's thoughts drifted back to Thompson. The human ambassador had fully surrendered to sleep now, his chest rising and falling gently, as if he were lying on a beach under a warm sun instead of facing imminent danger. Raxar couldn't help but admire Thompson's bravery. It was as if he believed that everything would be fine despite the circumstances. Perhaps this was what made humans so formidable. They possessed an unwavering faith in their ability to overcome adversity. Suddenly inspired by this realization, Raxar decided to leverage this unique aspect of human nature in his negotiations with Krax. If you want me to comply with your demands, he said smoothly, then I suggest you allow my colleague some time to awaken fully. His insights will be invaluable for our discussions. Krax hesitated for a moment before responding with skepticism. Why should I trust you? You've always been too soft on these creatures. A risky gamble. Raxar knew he was taking a significant risk by suggesting such an approach. It could either buy them precious time or lead to disaster if Krax saw through his ploy. But desperation fueled his resolve. He had no choice but to gamble on this unconventional strategy. Because, Raxar continued earnestly, the future of both our peoples is at stake here. You may view humans as weaklings who cannot defend themselves, but they are resourceful and resilient in ways we have yet to understand fully. Krax's silence stretched uncomfortably long before he finally replied. Fine. You have 10 minutes before I make my next move. Time for reflection. As soon as Krax ended the comms link, Raxar turned back toward Thompson's sleeping form. The human diplomat lay there peacefully oblivious to the chaos surrounding him. It was both infuriating and awe-inspiring. Raxar took a moment to reflect on what had transpired thus far. The tension between their species had always been palpable, but now it felt even more significant than ever before. Perhaps this conflict could serve as an opportunity for understanding rather than destruction. He recalled stories from Sandarian history when they had faced insurmountable odds yet emerged stronger through unity and cooperation. Could this be one of those moments? Could they find common ground despite their differences? A flicker of hope. With renewed determination coursing through him, Raxar leaned closer to Thompson's sleeping figure and whispered softly, "Wake up soon. We need you." He knew that once Thompson regained consciousness, they would have only moments before Krax would make his next move, moments that could determine the fate of both their races. As time ticked away slowly in that tense atmosphere filled with uncertainty and fear, Raxar felt an unexpected sense of hope blossoming within him, a hope rooted in understanding rather than fear. Perhaps this strange sleeping ability of humans wasn't just something to fear. Perhaps it held secrets that could unite them against those who sought division. And so he waited, watching over Thompson as minutes slipped away like grains of sand through an hourglass, readying himself for whatever came next in this precarious dance between two worlds on the brink of conflict or cooperation. The threat emerges. A new challenge. Ambassador Raxar's heart raced as he watched the chaos unfold in the conference room. Krax, the extremist, had made his move, and the stakes had never been higher. The tension in Olympus Station was palpable. It felt as if the very air was charged with fear and uncertainty. Raxar knew that if he didn't act quickly, the fragile peace they had been working towards could shatter into a million pieces. As he glanced at Ambassador Thompson, still held at gunpoint and teetering on the edge of sleep, Raxar felt a surge of determination. He couldn't let this moment slip away. The fate of both their species depended on him finding a way to navigate this precarious situation. Krax's demands. Krax's voice boomed through the comms, filled with venomous contempt. You think you can negotiate with these creatures? They're nothing but a threat to our existence. His mandibles clicked menacingly as he paced before the human delegates, who were wide-eyed with fear. Raxar opened a channel to Krax, trying to keep his voice steady. Krax, please. This isn't the way to resolve our differences. We were so close to an agreement that would benefit both our peoples. Close. Krax sneered. You mean you were close to selling us out? I won't let that happen. Either you end these negotiations now, or I'll make sure your precious humans pay the price. A moment of clarity. Raxar took a deep breath, his tentacles twitching with anxiety. He needed to think strategically. As he observed Krax's aggressive stance, an idea began to form in his mind. What if he could turn this situation around? What if he could use Krax's own fears against him? Krax, Raxar said slowly, I understand your concerns about humans, but consider this. If we turn our backs on them now, we risk losing everything we've built together. We need each other more than ever. Krax paused, his expression shifting slightly as he considered Raxar's words. What do you mean? The power of cooperation. Raxar seized the moment. Humans have resources and technology that could help us overcome our current crisis. If we work together, we can strengthen both our peoples and ensure our survival. Krax narrowed his eyes but didn't respond immediately. Raxar pressed on, sensing an opening. You know as well as I do that isolation will only lead to our downfall. If we unite against common threats, like those who would seek to exploit our weaknesses, we can emerge stronger. For a moment, silence enveloped the room as Krax processed Raxar's words. The human delegates remained frozen in place, their expressions a mix of fear and hope. A dangerous game. But just as Raxar thought he might have reached Krax, the extremist's eyes glinted with malice once more. And what makes you think I can trust you? You've always been too soft on them. Raxar felt a pang of frustration, but quickly masked it with calm resolve. Because I believe in a future where both our races thrive together. I know you care about our people's survival. This is about more than just pride. Krax hesitated again, but then raised his plasma rifle slightly, signaling his impatience. Enough talk. You have one chance to prove your loyalty to Xandaria. End these negotiations or face the consequences. A risky proposition. With time running out and Thompson still teetering on the edge of sleep, Raxar decided to take a gamble. Let me propose a solution, he said quickly. Allow me to speak with Ambassador Thompson directly while you hold him at gunpoint. Krax raised an eyebrow, intrigued but suspicious. And why would I agree to that? Because it gives you control, Raxar replied earnestly. You can monitor every word we say and ensure that I don't betray your trust. After a tense moment of contemplation, Krax lowered his rifle slightly and nodded reluctantly. Fine, but make it quick. I'm not in the mood for games. The conversation begins. Raxar stepped forward cautiously, his gaze locked onto Thompson's sleeping form. He leaned closer and whispered urgently into Thompson's ear, hoping to rouse him from his slumber. Ambassador Thompson, wake up. We're in danger. Slowly, Thompson stirred, blinking against the harsh lights above him as confusion clouded his eyes. What happened? He mumbled groggily. Krax has taken control, Raxar explained quickly. He's threatening violence unless we end negotiations immediately. Thompson's eyes widened as he processed the situation. We can't let that happen. We need this deal for both our peoples. I agree, Raxar replied urgently. But we need to convince Krax that cooperation is essential for survival. A plan formulates. As Thompson shook off the remnants of sleep and regained his composure, Raxar shared his plan. They would appeal to Krax's sense of duty toward their people while simultaneously highlighting the benefits of collaboration. Let me speak first, Thompson suggested confidently. I'll remind him of what we stand to gain by working together. Raxar nodded appreciatively. Thompson's bravery was commendable even in such dire circumstances. As they prepared for their next move, Raxar felt a flicker of hope igniting within him, a belief that perhaps they could turn this crisis into an opportunity for growth rather than destruction. Facing Krax again. With renewed resolve, they turned back toward Krax, who was watching them closely with narrowed eyes. Let's talk, Thompson said firmly. Raxar stood beside him as they faced Krax together, a united front against fear and aggression. Krax, Thompson began carefully. We understand your concerns about humans encroaching on Xandarian territory and resources. He paused for effect before continuing. But what if we could offer something beneficial for both sides? Krax's expression shifted slightly. Curiosity flickered beneath his anger. We have technology that could help combat external threats. Pirates raiding our trade routes or other hostile forces seeking to exploit our weaknesses, Thompson explained passionately. A glimmer of hope. Raxar watched as Krax's posture softened ever so slightly. Perhaps there was still hope for negotiation after all. If we work together, Thompson continued earnestly, we can ensure the safety and prosperity of both our peoples while standing strong against those who wish us harm. For the first time since entering Olympus Station, Raxar felt optimistic that their message might resonate with Krax, and that maybe they could find common ground amidst chaos. As they stood there facing down an uncertain future, filled with challenges yet unseen, one thing became clear. Unity was their greatest weapon against fear, and perhaps it would be enough to change the course of history for both Xandarians and humans alike. With every heartbeat echoing through Olympus Station like a drum roll announcing what lay ahead. An alliance forged in adversity. The fate of two worlds hung delicately in balance, waiting for resolution amidst turmoil and strife.